So tonight we'll do a reading of the Beatitudes, something I want to say about them. But first, I don't share my spiritual experiences anymore ever, but I could make an exception today because I had one that's quite unflattering. So if you guys remember, the first major sort of dream I had on the path was of me in a giant mansion, and there were just it was incredible spiral staircases and unbelievably vast, and every single room was haunted and debris everywhere, and it was just me in one room with the broom sweeping up, and I understood I had to clean the whole place. And that has been a reoccurring dream for years, and there's been progress made. So at some point in the past, the two upper floors were clean, pretty nice, but still couldn't go in the basement because it's terrifying. Horror level terrifying to go in the basement. Then over those years, I got the basement cleaned up, and then for a long time now, it's been mostly just in making improvements on the home, but not nothing haunted. So the basement's clean, that's your unconscious mind. And so it's been really nice, having everything cleaned up. So 2 nights ago, I was in the basement. It's not haunted, but I found this door, a new door, wasn't there before. So I opened it, and there's a secret basement. So it happened to be this house. It usually isn't, but this house was bigger. So now there's a new basement I don't know about. So I go down, and there's three people living down there who are running wires on the ceiling in demonic patterns and casting spells on me. So, and there's all these things of great worth that they've hidden from me, and it's once again haunted. Now, I'm not terrified, but I gotta tell you, it's no fun at all to have cleaned up the basement and know that the basement's done and to find another basement. So, no psychological content to report the first day, just normal day. I told my wife, oh, it looks like I've got lots more work to do, didn't know. So that's okay. But today it dumped. So I woke up 5 a.m. or so, did my meditation, had a great meditation, couple hours, great, and just came out obliterated. I couldn't tell you what it is yet, other than the entire day until just 5 minutes before meditation ended, I've been in a thick, thick fog and dead tired. Just unable to, the whole day was, I mean, I sat out here, but I don't know if I meditated more or slept more. I don't know which it is. So that's a report from me. I will say I'm genuinely excited and inspired about that. I want that out. I want to do the work. I want to have it all cleaned up. I didn't know there was a secret basement. And with a lot of good things too. I don't want to share too many details. I did go down and start kicking them out immediately. That's new. In the past, when I would discover a new haunted room, I was scared of it. I'd run from it. I just went down and started booting them out, saying you have to leave or I might shoot you. Get. So it was great. It was great. But still, work and then this dump, this psychological dump. And I bring that up, just for fun, but also act of humility, but also because, you'll wake up out of meditation not having had a dream like that, but one day you'll wake up and you'll be in a fog and tired. And you'll think, where's my spirituality and what has happened to me? And that's just more stuff coming out from your unconscious mind to be worked through. That's just what it is. And if you're in my camp, you're one of the number of people in here that have lots more to do than others. Some of us have more work to do than others. Some of us start from a worse place. And that's just the nature of the deal. It's one teacher told me be very careful about wanting to shift camps because I used to be envious of people who didn't have that work to do. But he revealed the value. There's a value in that. You don't get another way. There's a value in not being in that camp too. I mean, it's all good. But I wouldn't switch camps. It's my camp. So, okay. So along those lines, and because I think it's relevant to the center and where people are at, I thought we'd read the Beatitudes and talk about the first one. So it's Matthew chapter 5. And I've talked many times about the Beatitudes being the best map we have of the stages of Christian enlightenment. There is no better map for Christianity than the Beatitudes. But it has also, by Augustine, been described as the picture of Christ's soul. And also then the picture of what it means to be human, fully human, and to come into union with God. So that this is our best map. It is the image Jesus gives us for what it is like to be in union with God as a human being. And it's as rich as it can get. If you never heard that, hear that. They're not just little trite sayings or things you should practice. They're profound states of being from the foundation to the very top of what it means to be in union with God. And there is no better map for the Christian than the Beatitudes. And seeing the multitudes, he went up on a mountain. And when he was seated, his disciples came to him. Then he opened his mouth and taught them, saying, Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when they revile you and persecute you, and say all kinds of evil against you falsely for my sake. Rejoice and be exceedingly glad, for great is your reward in heaven. For so they persecuted the prophets who were before you. All right, so we can comment on that. So I hope I said that clearly enough. Try to really hear it. Jesus, the Master, shared with us this map, a picture of his soul and a picture of the stages to union. That should sink so deeply in your heart. What a treasure. In a way, you could say the entire gospel is summed up in these. That's how rich it is. So it's worthy of thought and meditation and consideration. You would want a map if you were going to get somewhere. You're trying to get to heaven. You're trying to get to union with God. You'd want a map. Here he gives you the map. It's all summed up. So think what great import that must have then. Try to hear it from that place. And there aren't very many of them. And the other thing to think about is that they are initiations. The stages are of course, things you would try to practice, of course. You would try to practice them. But there are also initiations that would happen to your soul as you give yourself more fully to God and are taken into these initiations. And some of them are easier than others for each particular individual. The stage of seeing God, that can be really easy for certain personality types who would struggle deeply with poverty of spirit. Vice versa. It really just depends on the person. It's different for everybody. But I wanted to discuss the poverty of spirit from this perspective of this scripture. Lord, someone speaking to Jesus, Lord, I am unworthy to receive you, but only say the word, and I shall be healed. And I just thought, in the context of the center and where people are, we have some people that are now out of the night, we have people that are in the night, and we have people that are going to enter the night. And it's interesting that for any of those stages, any of those three stages that people are either in or entering or finishing up, it doesn't matter. For any of those three stages, the most important beatitude according to all of the saints is poverty of spirit. By far the most important. It tends to be considered the root of the whole thing. And without it, nothing true can come. Nothing permanent can come. It is the root of everything. And how easy is it to find in light of our behavior with others? I mean, it really, if you think about it, it shouldn't be too hard to find in light of your behavior in the world. There's endless opportunity to find it all the time. If you're looking and if you're not resisting it, right? So I thought, so as a practice, okay, when you practice, I'm going to call it being unworthy, but I might also say poverty of spirit because they're not exactly the same. I would say practicing being unworthy is a way to practice poverty of spirit. I would say it's like a cousin to it or a support. It's one form of poverty of spirit. But unworthy is so good. When you practice being unworthy, notice that it brings you peace and comfort. Notice. It's the foundation to stand on. It is stability. Notice that. You must, most of you, I would think everyone in the room pretty much, must know that when you find yourself in disorder with others in the world or with others in your head, don't you notice that if you can just say, you're right, I'm unworthy, I'm broken, I'm wounded, can't you then find a deep and profound peace that takes all of that suffering away? And because our measure is God, who is the good itself, our unworthiness is rooted in sin in comparison to God. It's easy to go out in the world and feel great about yourself as long as you just look down on everyone around you who is less in some way. That's easy. Anyone could do it. I had a friend who lived under a viaduct for 10 years. He's now a psychologist, but he was then a homeless man. He said it was really easy for him to look down on certain homeless people. That he was filled with pride while living as a homeless man. Think of that. Now he's a psychologist doing all these great things, but then homeless. Okay? For many years, by the way. But he could look down on anyone. He never had a problem being filled with pride. He even looked down on some of the bums that were working for the man, driving by in cars and having homes. He even found a way to look down on them. That's easy. That's easy. That's no problem. So okay. So our measure for what is good and what is true, for how we're doing, it has to become biblical. It has to be Christ-centered. It can't be compared to other people. It has to be compared to the good itself. God who does not have good qualities, but God who is the good itself. This is our measure. Okay. So then, when you practice unworthiness from that perspective, you return to your root, which is your relationship with God, right? Your primary relationship, right? We have all these relationships, but they're all secondary. They're all secondary. Our primary relationship is the one we have with God. Because at the root of your being, you find nothing. If you inspect yourself, the Buddha discovered this in a different way. If you inspect yourself and pay attention to the self, mystically, spiritually, contemplatively, you'll eventually discover you have no root in yourself. I've been there, where the world falls off and there's nothing there. There is no root. It's a spooky place because you realize yourself has no ultimate foundation. Right below that, you notice God holding you in existence. And then you find out that you have perfect stability, but not in yourself. Not in yourself. You have it in God. This is why the Buddha said there is no self. He just stopped short of God holding him in existence. But the Christian revelation says, no, it's true you have no root in yourself. It's true. You didn't make yourself. You can't hold yourself in existence. You can't even quite define it. You don't know what it is. It's always in a state of evolution. You don't have no choice about what you are. You are just what you are. But there is something under there that's a perfect stability. That's God. Practicing unworthiness brings us back to that root, back to that place, to the primary relationship, to our point of stability. And it has this effect. The reason why it brings so much peace is because when you start practicing your unworthiness before God, you unhook from all your attachments to your social status. You unhook, you're unhooking. You get down, I feel, not everyone will experience it this way, but I feel I get down below everything. Up here, there may be some kind of social disorder I'm having with people or with society or whatever. But under that is this perfect place of stability with God that I access through poverty of spirit. I thought of an example. Let's say a person is at work and they make a mistake at work. It's not going to get them fired, but it's big enough to be noticed by everyone. Management notices. Coworkers notice. Okay? Some people don't care about that, but let's just say that this person, their personality type is rooted in being successful. Right? So that's where they get a lot of their false stability. Right? So then they make a mistake at work and they're chastised by their boss. And this person has a need to be seen as competent. It's kind of what their false identity is built on. I'm competent. So this is going to hurt. It's going to hurt. There's going to be pain. And the pain is because of their attachment to their reputation socially. Right? Like I could have named a million examples. I thought I don't want one coming from me, so this is one I don't understand. I don't have it. But this is really common. Lots of people have it. So, okay, that person is uncomfortable because their stability and their comfort is based on how people see them, specifically based on how competent they are, and they made a grievous error. Everyone has noticed, and now it hurts. It hurts. What do? What should they do? Well, they should practice poverty of spirit. They should say, yes, 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 I am broken. Yes, I do blow it. Yes, everyone has noticed. And it's good that everyone has noticed, because all of my self-esteem is coming from something not real, not true, something unreal and untrue. So for the person on a spiritual path, this is a great good that's come into their life, because it forces them to find their root again in God and find stability there. And not by defending themselves in their mind for 5 days against the accusers, not by justifying, but just saying, you know what, I got to get under all that. Ideally, you could admit it to everyone, but at least you can go home and say, oh, I did blow it. I did. And I'm imperfect. I'm imperfect. And if a person can say that and mean it and go to God and say it, they will return to their root of perfect stability. And they'll find deep peace there. Deep peace. In unworthiness. In imperfection. In brokenness. It brings us back to our primary reality. Truth. And we shouldn't have gotten hooked up on that in the first place, but we were already and didn't notice. And these rifts that happen, they reveal to us where we're getting our stability instead of God. That's what they're for. And in my experience, it takes the complexity of all of those relationships and, inventory, right? Self-knowledge takes all that complexity and ends it by coming down to the root of simplicity. Just simplicity. Here we are. Once again, God, here I am. And if you've been on the path a while, you've done this many, many, many times. And you know the peace it brings when you finally just stop defending and pretending and arguing. That seems to be a microcosm of the whole night, the process of the whole night, where you're just revealed again and again every way in which you are connected to the world in an egoic way. And you have to see it. And the whole way through is poverty of spirit. Just keep admitting. I was going to say it helps, if you're a person who resists it, just imagine if you weren't. And then be like that now. Because one day you're going to value that process so much that you're going to take great happiness in the fact that you do it. Great happiness. You're going to love that you found that capacity. You're going to love it. Which means you have the capacity now to love it. You don't have to kick and scream every single time. The faster you run to it, the better. Realize you've already lost. One person in here said, the die is cast, man. I'm going to get undone. And then after that, not too long after, he said, now I'm going to stop resisting it. I know the direction I'm being taken. I don't want it to hurt every time. And I watched him not hurt every time now because he decided to like it and choose it instead of run from it. Think of this. That's a choice made that made it way easier and way better. We don't have to get dragged through razor blades every single time to get there. We can just choose I don't like to drive, okay? But we realized that we've only got 4 years left to take our daughter to neat places. But we can't fly and do hotels and all. We're going to have to do a little car camping. That's how it's going to be. I don't like to drive. So I decided to start liking driving. So now I like driving. Just did a 8-hour trip. Didn't bother me at all. But it used to be 3 hours I was going to die. You can't just... I know it's ridiculous, but it's true. I just hated it. But then I realized if I hate it, we won't do these things. So now I just have to like it. So I just decided I'm going to like it. Now I love it. That's how it is with resisting. Just change your mind. Just decide to love it. You don't have to resist. It's the way, you're going to get dragged through the coals, dragged over rocks, or you can just skip on in and say, here, I know where we're going, let's go. You could do that. You could do that. And as the person who said the die is cast, you're not going to win. There is only one place to go. There's no other place to go. There is no other resolution. There's no time at which you're going to find out everyone else is wrong but you. And there's nothing wrong with you and you're just a little angel. It's just not going to happen. I would love it. I told Mary, I would love if that was true. It would be so neat to just find out it was never me. And I'm always right. But it never happens. I'm open to that. I would love it. Okay. Now look. Now reverse it. Now when you've done something at work really well, and everybody has noticed, okay? And everybody is praising you, and the boss and management notice, and they're like, wow, you're kind of amazing. We're really grateful to have you. Can't wait to do your review. You'll probably be looking at a raise. You're really neat. You need to practice unworthiness then, as much as at the other time. If you give them the power to make you feel good, you've also given them the power to make you feel bad. If that raises your spirit, a little bit's okay, a little. But if that is raising your spirit immensely, then you now know your root is not in God, it's in social connection. And by the way, that's just an example, but this is the whole stage after the night, the stage of illumination, where you're walking largely in the virtues, and lots of times you're filled with joy or love or, just an appreciation that your vision is clear and everything looks neat and you've got a lot of good things in your life. You have to practice poverty of spirit then. If you don't, you'll lose your root. And if you lose your root, you'll make some egregious error to help remind you to go back to poverty of spirit, which, just happens. But it can be mitigated by keeping the root. Remember, the Beatitudes from poverty of spirit, mourning the way you are, and the suffering of the world, all the way to seeing God. That's one thing in Christ. And that's one thing in the enlightened Christian. In bliss, in rapture, in union with God in heaven while walking down the road in poverty of spirit. That's the way. That's the way. It's one thing. The people that in the center that are coming out of the night, some of them can't meditate all of a sudden. There's a number of people in the center who can't meditate right now. They've been meditating 15 freaking years, and they can't get in. Why? Well, because the Holy Spirit came over them for a number of years a certain way, and without meaning to, they found techniques and ways of finding that power and entering it. There's ways of praying, movements of the heart, repentances. There's just certain techniques worked better for that stage. Then all of a sudden, they're not in the night primarily. That one's more established. There's new things being shown them. And none of the, so here it is. So the Holy Spirit brought them in, and on accident, they developed technique. But now the technique they used to get in with the night does not work in the stage of illumination. That's how truth becomes technique, and then technique becomes dead. So how do you find again? Well, I would think poverty of spirit would work. I would think I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know how to meditate. I don't know how to pray. Everything I do is filled with control. I'm trying to get somewhere I've always gotten, which is super arrogant. I don't know where you want me to be. I'm trying to take the reins. And let me start over here. I have no idea what I should get today. And I have no idea what you're sending me. And I have no idea how to get there. Please show me the way. And you could come in empty, and you'll notice you're coming in with technique you accidentally developed to cooperate with God's power. That's what happens. I've forgotten how to meditate several times on the path, so I know this. It's terrible to just one day have it not work at all. When you're praised for the good that you're accomplishing in your life, you should immediately move to, not violently, but just, I try to think of the worst parts of me still. Now I have a whole new basement of things to think about that I don't even know about yet. I just try to think of the worst parts, and I'm not hurting myself. I don't want to lose my footing. I don't want to lose poverty of spirit. I don't want to go up and fall over. I don't want to. So Jesus said, I don't receive the praise of men. I don't receive the praise of men. That's a practice. That's a practice. I could take it as a sign like that I'm somewhere in the ballpark of doing okay. But don't receive the praise of men. Recognize God as the source of all your accomplishment. Like that you're in a world God made, in a body God made, with talents and capacities that God made. That you didn't bring yourself into existence. You can't hold yourself in existence. And you could do none of it without God. God should be getting the praise. For my personality type, the best way to stay in poverty of spirit when I'm low is to stay when I'm high. That's the best time. If I'm high, if I'm doing well, if I've contributed to something in a good way, that's the best time for me to put my feet on the ground, put my head down. And not allow it to fill my heart. In this way, the Christian is not like a tree that gets so tall without roots that the sun burns it up or the wind blows it over. In this way, the roots are equal to the height of the tree. And you don't notice when it feels so good, but you've lost your root. You'll notice if you keep your root, even when it's praise, you don't lose that deep peace. At the very most, it's just a sign, that for that moment, the universe is saying, hey, you're doing okay. But you don't get a big head about it because you know what you're capable of. You know. And if you forget, it seems to get revealed quickly. Especially if you're on a path, because you're asking the truth to be shown. You want to know. Coming back down to poverty of spirit reverses all the devil's taunts. All of them. The devil says you're unworthy, and you say, yes, that's right, and you find yourself in salvation as you say it. You find yourself condemned. You say, yes, you're right. And you repent, and you find yourself in forgiveness. So these accusations, whether they're the devil or the mind, it doesn't matter, we don't care. These accusations are turned into means to get closer to God. But not if we run from them. One more principle. This poverty of spirit, it connects us to everyone. You wouldn't think it would, but it does. You can't see it in you without seeing it in others. So you find your brokenness and you find your arrogance and you find the root of why everything's a mess in your little part of the world, and then you kind of see like everyone's doing that. And as you gain any kind of humility, you realize, man, I really want to be different and I can't quite pull it off. Then you think, well, they probably can't either. So there's love there. There's a connection there. There's a community. There's communion, right? There's communion there. And try to hear this one if you're plagued by the weight of your personal sin. If you're saying, me, I'm terrible, I'm bad. Try to hear this one. There's a beauty in transcending that. And absolutely seeing your own sin still, but recognizing it as a part of universal sin. Like, of course you are. Who isn't? When we make it so me, it's a form of self-centeredness. But it's also inaccurate, of course. It's like, well, of course you are. I mean, why wouldn't you be? Who isn't? Who isn't? We all are. It's the point of humanity. We struggle. We fail. We're imperfect. We want to do good and don't do it. We say one thing on the way into that place and we immediately do the opposite thing. That's humans. There's a way for that to not separate us from others, but to connect us to others. But it's a way of touching the universality of sin instead of getting hung up just on my sin, just my own personal sin, as if I'm some special case. which we're not. Okay, and that's almost everything. So now I'm trying to help and encourage you. And I hope this doesn't sound heavy. Because if you everything that's heavy brings us to Christ. Everything. All of it. It's straight in. You do well, straight in. You do poorly, straight in. You can't miss. You can't miss. That's the beauty of it. Nothing is wasted in salvation. Jesus inserted himself in every degree of sin, in every person. You can find Christ everywhere you are, because Christ is everywhere. It's the beauty of it. Okay, so just as a review on the prayer, because I know quite a few people are struggling, and I also am in some ways. This is the third time it's happened. I might have a little more experience, but I know that since I can't get in, I'm getting in, but I think I told you guys a couple months ago I wasn't. I know if I can't get in, I've forgotten how to meditate again. If it doesn't wear off in a month or two, I know I've forgotten how to meditate. And I know the old way doesn't work anymore. I don't know, you're not like me, so I don't want to get all technical on how I do it, because it sounds really mystical. And it might be just as simple as changing your technique for you, you know? But I do know one thing. I know you're expecting it to go the way it went. And you're looking so hard for a bear in the forest, you're going to get eaten by a cougar. You know what I mean? Like, it's not the bear now. Now it's something else. So you got to stop looking for me, it's directions, certain energy, feelings. You can't look for what it was. You have to look for what it is. And there may well be an addiction or a willfulness there for it to be the way it was. Especially in the mid-period where it just sucks for a while, and you did have more before. You did. It was better before. But you're going somewhere better, but there's a time in between where it's kind of terrible. That has to be okay. If you stop trying to get anywhere, you'll probably discover you will, that God's doing exactly what God wants to do, and you're not relating to it. Because you're relating to something else. Or you're trying to. You're trying to go deeper, you're trying to go up, you're trying. And also, if you get tired while you're praying, you're trying too hard for sure. This happened this week to me. I had the neatest experience. Not anything powerful, but I just couldn't get in, not getting in. And it's probably 20 minutes or so. Just I'm not in. But it's also, I'm not just sitting there calmly. I'm just not in. I'm waiting for this to stop, and it hasn't stopped. And I'm not thinking, for 10 years I wake up, I don't have a thought in my head. This is ridiculous. I've fallen behind. I'm not that bad. I could be doing that, just getting all upset and scandal. I'm not doing that. But it's weird that things are going, and they're waking me up at like 5 a.m. after having dreams that are stirring things up. And so there's things and emotional content and psychological content all going on, and it's just sitting there, and I can't get in. And I caught the tape I was running. Here's what I was saying. I'm not meditating, but I need to be. And it's like, but that's a judgment. And this just quiet thought came in, and I thought, this is my prayer. And as soon as I said it, I felt the presence of God. I realized my judgment that I wasn't praying right was killing my prayer. It was very profound, but not fancy. I don't even know where that thought came from. I just thought, this is my prayer. And as soon as I said it, it happened. Very strange. Because you think, 20 minutes gone by, but I haven't meditated yet. Is it going to be 3 hours? This is terrible. And I just know this is my prayer. Boom. Done. Done. Sometimes if you're having difficulty in prayer, you're not being honest. I don't think too many would struggle with this, but just remember, you've got to be talking to God about your real thoughts, your real feelings, what's really going on with you. And if you sugarcoat it, it's all not real, and you're not going to get anywhere. And I'm not even saying it's all bad or all good. It doesn't matter what it is. When you're talking to God, you have to be honest. You can't clean it up because you might offend God. Then you're not honest. Like, that doesn't work. You can't edit it. You have to be really you. So, and I told you this many times when I was in the night, that was one of the other times I forgot to meditate, forgot how. And I was trying to say, I love you, I give you my life, like I was the previous stage. And I was saying these things and they were lies. And I just couldn't get in. And I realized I'm freaking lying. So I started saying, I don't love you and I don't want you. And I'm sorry, but that's true. And then it would start to happen for real. If I would just tell the truth. I realized I was lying. And that's why I couldn't get in. I wasn't being authentic and real. I was trying to sound like I sounded before. And I just didn't, it wasn't true anymore. The last thing is, I've forgotten this. I had to look it up. I've forgotten so many things from the previous stage. It's amazing. Remember that dryness of spirit is often healing. The way the Catholic Church would describe it is the calendar year. And there's I don't know much, I can't remember any of it, I have no retentive memory. There's like Lent, and then there's, like the resurrection, and there's these high times within the calendar year. But most of the times are called ordinary time. And so if you read a Catholic author saying, what is dryness of spirit? They'll say, well, you're in ordinary time, which is most of the time. So what are you doing? You don't get caught up in that. You're in ordinary time. So that's okay. And, but also just remember that dryness of spirit, if you're not judging it and beating yourself up and turning it into a nightmare, if you're just letting it be okay, there's a very special kind of growth that happens there. And some of the images given are the kind of trees that can survive in a drought because they dig very, very deep roots. And they develop these waxy leaves so they evaporate no water. They lose nothing. Christianity is often described as a religion of the desert. So if you're judging it, you're missing it. There is something there, but you're missing it if you're judging it.